So my name is Uri Levine, and people mostly know me as the founder of Waze. But in addition, I've built dozens of other startups and another unicorn, which is Moovit. And I'm the author of the book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution.
What's the recipe for successful startup, right? So I would say it's probably a combination of three things, right? One is trying to solve a big problem, something that it's worth solving, right? And that will be the first one. The second one is actually the CEO. And we tend to think that the CEO is very important in all companies. In startup, this is absolutely critical, in particular, because it's going to be a very long journey until you demonstrate significant value. And in this long journey, many of the startups will fail, right? So we are looking for a CEO that will never give up, right? Someone that will keep on going regardless of how hard it is, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be ups and downs like a roller coaster journey. And then the third element is understanding this journey, right? And I think that in my book, I actually quite describe the journey of multiple phases, and each one of them is a journey of failures, and each one of them is a roller coaster journey. And understanding this journey has actually increased the likelihood of being successful. So I would narrow it down into a very few, right? And the first one is fall in love with the problem and not the solution. Focus on trying to solve the problem, and then listen to users, which is critical in all cases, right? But in particular, if you don't listen to your users, you're eventually going to build stuff that they don't care. And if you build stuff that they don't care, there will be someone else that is being stuff that they do care about. And then the last element will be making decisions with conviction. And this is really critical because there will be so many decisions that you will need to make along the way. And you need to make them with the conviction that this time it's definitely the right decision, and follow that path. So really what makes me tick, what really makes me excited is making things better for a lot of people, right? So the impact on the people is what drives me. My passion is always about creating more value to my users, to my customers, and so forth. So each and every revolution that we will say that is actually going to make life easier, is going to save people money, it's going to save people time, it's going to empower people, then I already like that, because creating value for a lot of people is my number one drive in building startups. Many of my startups deals with, and I'll mention some of them, right? They try to, each one of them is trying to address a single problem, which is ended up to be a big one. Some of them are actually consumers problems, some of them are business problems, some of them are agriculture problems, and so forth. But let me mention a few. Pontera, formerly FX, started because we don't know how much we are paying, and in particular on financial fees, and the result is that we are paying too much. But when we started that, we realized that Americans are actually not optimizing their retirement saving, and the result is that they retire with way less money that they should have if they would take care of that early. And so Pontera addresses the 401k market, which is $20 trillion in the US. FairFly deals with the biggest secret in travel industry. What happened to airfare after you book your flight? Now you have no idea because no one is comparing prices after they make the reservation. But prices are going up and down all the time. They're going up and down before you're making the reservation and also after you're making the reservations. So what FairFly does is actually monitor your own itinerary. And if the price drops, you can rebook the same flight at a cheaper price. Now, if you think about that as a solution for a corporate, you end up with the ability to save them 10% of the travel budget that goes directly to the bottom line. And that's pretty significant. Cahoon, for example, deals with medical knowledge and trying to convert all the medical knowledge in the world today is actually in text. There are textbooks, there are articles, there are research, everything is in text. And we convert that into a data and build a system that actually thinks like a doctor and can help doctors to improve everywhere. And so improving medical services around the globe is our mission. Refundit, right? When you travel to Europe and you buy goods, you're entitled to get the VAT back. This is about 20% of the deal, right? So quite a lot of money. But when you try to do that, it simply doesn't work. There are always bad things that happen. Maybe long lines at the customs, maybe the stores don't have the right form. Maybe you go to the terminal and you ask, okay, do you have tax-free shopping? And they say, of course we have. It's in a different terminal, right? Something bad happens. And we decided that we are going to address that. By the way, this is pre-COVID about 30 billion euros a year that tourists are entitled to get, and we simply don't. And this is just an example of few of the startups, but if you really want to think of a bigger problem, then think of medical services in the US. They are 5 times more expensive than in Germany. Now, it's not that they're better than Germany, it's simply 5 times more expensive. So obviously there is 4x of inefficiency in the medical services, right? And I would love to address that. I'm not addressing it yet, but I probably will. Number one, it's actually going to be aired on January 17th. So we are about 2.5 months away from that. Look, I started this journey in order to fulfill a different kind of Uri, right? So there is Uri, the entrepreneur that everyone knows, but there is Uri, the teacher, which is another strong personality of me. And I feel equally rewarded when I share my knowledge and my know-how and when I build stuff myself, right? And so in that sense, I wrote this book in order to help entrepreneurs and increase their likelihood of being successful. But I ended up with writing a business book that will help all business people. And I can tell you that when I shared the book with Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, he told me that this is amazing. I wish I had that when I started. And so obviously there is a lot of key learnings, a lot of abstractions of different ways of building stuff, not just for startups, but firing and hiring, figuring out growth, understanding users, right? Because at the end of the day, all users are different. They belong to different groups, but we are a sample of one person. That's it. To the publicists, they say, no, it should be hiring and firing. And I say, no, it should be firing and hiring because of 2 reasons. One is that firing is hard decision, hiring is easy decisions. And it's much harder to make hard decisions. The second one is that the impact of firing the wrong person within the organization is dramatically higher than hiring. And the reason is very simple. When there is someone that does not fit into the organization, and this person does not fit for whatever reason, maybe they are way underperformed, maybe they are simply jerks that no one wants to like to work with them, everyone knows. And if you don't do anything, and everyone knows, that's even a bigger problem. So if there is someone that shouldn't be there and you don't do anything, the result is that the top performing people would leave. Now, if they know and you do something, you actually increase their engagement with the organizations, because all of a sudden now we are an organization that cares. And that has way bigger impact than hiring the right people. So let me start with disruption in general and what's the role of corporates within this market, right? Because when we look at the past decade, we see a lot of disruptions happen, right? And the reality is that in most cases, disruption happened by a newcomer, right? Someone that had nothing to lose. And so it could be a startup, could be a new entry into the market, but usually corporates don't disrupt. They don't disrupt because it's very challenging. In order to disrupt, we need to start with the statement that is saying what we are currently doing is wrong. Now, this is hard to do at an individual level, not let alone on a corporate level. And so usually we don't see corporates disrupt their own market, which makes that a challenging factor, because when disruption happens, they will be left behind. And so the key issue for corporates, how can they innovate, or how can they cope with a market that is due for disruption? Right? Because when you look at the history and you ask yourself, so what Blockbuster did in order to prevent Netflix? And the answer is nothing. They actually had a chance to invest in Netflix, and they say no, right? Or Yahoo did not acquire Google for $2 million, right? 2 million, not 2 billion, not 2 trillion, just 2 million. And they say no, right? And so you ask yourself, so how can you not see that in the next time? And the reality is that you are not going to see that, because you focus on what you're currently doing and you believe that this is the right path. And if you see something else, then you're probably going to say this will never work. The issue is that it might work. And when you come to think about it, you would say, wait a minute, it could have worked. And the reality is this is where corporate innovation needs to kick in. And in order to do corporate innovation right, there are two questions that each and every corporate need to ask themselves once a year, right? And this is probably in an offsite, and maybe bringing other people as well. The first one is, what will make me irrelevant? So just imagine that you can think of something that in 5 or 10 years will make you irrelevant, right? So a few years back, everyone was thinking of autonomous vehicles, and all of a sudden, the reality that driving schools are going to become irrelevant. Right? So if you can think of something that will make you irrelevant in 5 or 10 years, there is someone else that can think the same way. And what you really need to do, and this is where the most significant part of innovation is critical. At the end of the day, when the market is being disrupted, that means that there is a shift in the equilibrium of the market from wherever it was before into a new equilibrium that by definition is way better than before. So the first thought of opportunities of innovation is to realize that the opportunity is way bigger than the threat. Now, if you can say, okay, this market is going to go through a disruption, and this is the new market, your opportunity in the new market is dramatically bigger than before, and you need to be there. Now, in order to be there, you might be able to invest in startups that are building something like that. You might be able to spin off something to actually build something that will become the market leader of that new market. The challenge is that it's a long journey. And therefore, it has to be outside of the corporate, because if this disruption of this revolution is going to take a decade, within the next decade, your company will suffer from challenges, periods, right? So maybe because of COVID, maybe because of interest rate, maybe because of something that we have no clue what it is, but there will be a challenging period for the corporate. During this decade, this new division or new spin-off or new startup that you invested in is going to run into similar difficulties, but they are going to bleed cash. If you're a corporate, your board will tell you, shut down that bleeding cash division. And that will be the end of the opportunity to innovate. Now, if you invest in that or spin that off or did something else, then you have no problem for that keep on going separately from your own organization. So the right approach is that if you can think that there is something that will make you irrelevant, make sure that you are part of someone that is leading the journey to that something. And this is the first question that you need to ask yourself: what will make me irrelevant? The second question, which is maybe even equally important, will be, what assets do I have that if they can be used completely different, that means a bigger business than myself? And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are Coca-Cola, right? And obviously a lot of places around the globe are basically saying, wait a minute, Coca-Cola is not a good drink, right? But they actually have access to anywhere on the planet, right? Every store that sells drinks, every restaurant, every 7-Eleven or whatever, every place that there are people, there are stores that are selling Coca-Cola. So they actually have delivery mechanism to all those places. They can replace the FedEx or UPS or DHL or anyone, because they already have that access. And so here is an example of a resource that is being used completely different, but means a bigger business. And if you can do that, then obviously, if you have a resource like that, if you have an asset like that that can be used differently, then start to think about building sort of an incubator to startups to use that resource to deliver a different service. So these are two critical parts for corporations to innovate. And it's always about, it's not you by yourself. It's someone else that you're guiding, you are investing, you are doing something in order to help them to become successful. Because as a corporate, you cannot run through the long journey. And in particular, you don't have the right DNA of the company to become a disruptor. And you need someone to be able to disrupt and with the point of view that I have nothing to lose in order to make that significant impact. When I was young, my dad once told me, I came to him with a challenge that I said, look, I don't know which path to choose. I have this path or this path, and I like them both, and I'm not sure which one to choose. And he reached out to his pocket and get a coin out and said, I'm going to flip the coin. And before the coin drops, you're going to make the call. Now, it turns out that making decision with conviction, which we mentioned earlier, that is really critical for startups, it's equally important for corporates, making a decision, because when you don't make a decision, everyone is waiting for the decision. If you don't make one, then they start to feel concerns and embarrassed, and they're not sure what exactly we are doing. But there is more to it, right? So making decision with conviction is one. Understanding users, I said it's critical for startups, but obviously it's critical for all the corporates. The second, that you stop building stuff that they care. You're starting to build stuff that they don't care. And then someone else will be building stuff that they do care. And you would lose your customers. But there is more into it about decision, because it turns out that many of the decisions actually have to do with people, with hiring and firing. And at the end of the day, there is a corporate DNA that was established over the year that can be changed, right? Most of the corporates that I have met, part of their DNA is fear of failures. Now, in reality, if you're afraid to fail, then you're already failed, because you're not going to try new things. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that because you haven't tried anything new before. If you will try new things, you will fail. Now, if the corporate is punishing for mistakes, then obviously you are building the DNA of a corporate that does not accept failures. And when you do not accept failures, actually what happens is that you lock people within the existing framework that they have, and they don't think out of the box, or they don't exercise, they're not trying something new. Now, if you have the right people to try new things, what will happen is that they will leave. And then you lose the ability to innovate and continue the innovations for the future. So major part is making sure that you actually establish a DNA of less fear of failure. I'm not saying no fear of failures, I'm saying less. Because the less fear of failure that you have, the result is that you will have more people trying to bring their creativity into the framework and obviously make the business better. One of the interesting part that I had, and this is it's a key learning from startups, but when you think about it, you realize that this is about all the corporates in the world, right? So I spoke with many entrepreneurs that their startup failed, and asked them what happened, right? And about half said the team was not right. So I kept on asking, okay, what do you mean the team was not right? And some of them say we had this guy not good enough, this guy not good enough. So not good enough was one reason. Another reason that I heard quite often was we had communication issues, right? Something that I actually called ego management issues. And then I asked them the most interesting question: when did you know that the team is not right? Now, all of them knew within the first month. There was one guy that told me before we even started. So you say, wait a minute, if you knew within the first month that the team is not right and you didn't do anything, The problem was not that the team was not hired. The problem was that the CEO did not make hard decisions. So this is about making hard decisions, right? Making hard decisions is critical for the success of the corporate. But there is another key learning out of that. And this has to do with firing and hiring. Now, you hire a new guy. I would say put in a calendar 30 days from now, right? 30 days from now, exactly 1 month. One question to ask yourself: knowing what I know today, would I hire this guy? Now, if the answer is yes, then absolutely, this is a keeper. You can even promote them, or you can at least tell them that you are very excited that they have joined the company, and you are very and you feel that they are a great fit. But if the answer is no, fire them immediately. Because in reality, you already set up your mind. You basically say, this guy is not going to be successful here. And you set them for a failure, and everyone knows. So 30 days after you hire a new person, ask yourself one question: knowing what I know today, would I hire this guy? And this turns out to be, at the end of the day, look, you look at the corporate is like a huge ship, right? It's not a speedboat. It's not going to accelerate in no time, and it's not going to make turns in no time, right? But we are looking into improvement, right? So how can we do better next time, and better and better and better? And the improvement is going to be slowly, one step at a time. And if you look at making decisions, if you look at firing and hiring, if you would think that reducing fear of failure, each one of them is actually increasing the likelihood of becoming great, one step at a time. I told Adi this week that there is something that we are going to write in the next book. So I'm already thinking of the next book, obviously. Obviously, the next startups, they are always the next startups for me. But it's not something that I'm planning, next week. There is many of my startups are actually, solving problems that are worth solving. But it's not that I know that next year I'm going to have a new one, but I might. I have a lot of problems that I keep on thinking all the time. Then hopefully I will try to address them.